I'm Al Prieto with Egon Zehnder. We've partnered with the Latino Corporate Directors Association to produce a series of interviews highlighting the success stories of top Latino leaders. Joining us today is Gisel Ruiz. Gisel is formerly the Chief Operations Officer of Sam's Club of Walmart. Well, Gisel, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time.
It's my pleasure. Glad to be here.
To start, it'd be great to, if you could share with us a bit about your most recent role at Walmart, and along with that, some of the things that you're most proud of that you accomplished over your course of your career.
Well, I was most recently the Chief Operations Officer at Sam's Club. That's about a $65 billion business, responsible for about 110,000 associates and overseeing 600 stores across the United States and Puerto Rico. And before that was in human resources. That
is not a traditional shift from a functional role into a broader general management role. So what gave you the confidence to make that type of move?
Well, it is unusual to do cross disciplines between operations and human resources, and it wasn't on my radar at all. I had grown up through the ranks in operations, and I had a very persistent regional vice president that kept asking me to interview for jobs in Bentonville. And at the time, I was a store manager, happy in my role. And I said no once, I said no twice, and I called my husband one day and said, I don't think I can say no a third time. I should go and do the interview. And so I did. And it turns out that I was appointed to the labor relations manager, and that was my first human resource role. And I haven't looked back since. I think one of the things that gave me a great deal of confidence is I was young and ambitious and didn't know any better. So growing up in Walmart, you never really feel the scale. I felt very confident in my ability to connect with people, and in retail, so much of what we do is connected with people. I point to my human resource background because being in those roles, although they were much smaller in scale, helped me kind of step back and look at things from a very different perspective, from a broader perspective. So all of a sudden, I couldn't lead just on my own merit and on my own ability and capability. I needed to be more thoughtful, listen harder, and I really credit my experience in human resources, making that jump outside of my comfort zone, to the success that I had in my first corporate officer position.
Gisel, share a little bit about your personal background and how that laid the foundation for the leader you've become.
I was born and raised in California in a very rural town surrounded by agriculture. My mom has a 6th grade education. She met my father out in the fields of California. He was actually a foreman, never went to school a day in his life, so they both were migrant workers. And I grew up in very humble surroundings with hardworking parents who taught my sister and I that there were no challenges in front of you, only the challenges that you set in front of yourself. My culture and background has everything to do with the way that I look at the world. I grew up with 2 Spanish-speaking parents. Spanish was my first language. But I think one of the things that companies have to be very careful with is that you shouldn't rely on Latinos to only share a perspective about Latinos in the world of Hispanic products or whatever the case is. You need to approach it in a way where you understand and fully appreciate that the background, the culture, the experience helps me have a unique perspective about an unlimited span of topics, whatever it is. And I think that's a real competitive advantage.
You really touched on a topic that is often underemphasized in terms of diversity, which is the fact that you're coming from a background that is not, let's say, in the majority, and that fact actually means that you're more open in your lens to look at different opportunities and different perspectives.
It's a unique perspective. It doesn't mean it's a right perspective, a wrong perspective. It's just different. And so as companies think about adding board members or adding executives to their teams, they really need to fully appreciate that difference of perspective in the room and what that can do for their business.
Where do you think, like in terms of your experiences, both growing up as a Latina in the U.S. and then in your business experiences, where do you think that comes into play in terms of businesses today, organizations today, and as they look forward to the future?
Between the years of 1980 to 2000, that's only 20 years, Latinos accounted for 40% of the population growth in the United States. Average age of Latino population is 29. Non-Hispanics is somewhere in the 40s. By the way, it's a $2.3 trillion purchasing power bucket for companies. So for me, it's not just the right thing to do. This is a business imperative for companies to pay attention to this.